please turn in it to Habakkuk. Habakkuk in the less recent Testament, one of the late minor prophets. And I just have to, I don't have to, but I'm gonna. I had a sleepless night, I guess it was Thursday, and a lot of things factored into it, lots of things. One of them was, it was the day of the announcement, and I'm not doing a political sermon, I promise. But this is what happened to me. The announcement that, he'd been convicted, Donald Trump had been convicted on all 34 counts, just really disturbed me. And it disturbed me for a lot of reasons, but it was kind of a capstone in my life with regard to so much that has been going on for so long in our culture. And I just could not sleep, so I got up and at midnight and went in and started working. And I've never done this since I've been at this church. Not once have I ever worked on a sermon in the same week that I gave it. Never. I've always worked 2 weeks out. I get up Monday, and Monday morning the sermon that I'm preparing will be for Sunday following the next one, 2 weeks away. And I got into a conversation with Becky about all this because she could tell that I wasn't myself. And I told her about the sermon, and I said, I'm planning to do it 2 weeks out. She said, I think you ought to do it today. I said, well, I've never done that before. Kind of scary. Usually I like to work a whole week on a sermon before I deliver it. So if the wheels come off today, you'll know what happened, if they do. But what struck me about this week, and as I thought about this, I thought to myself, okay, what do I do here? What's my position here? Where do I fit into this world right now? What's the purpose for me even being in this world at this point, given what's going on all around me? It just seemed like a purposeless breathing and taking in oxygen and releasing the carbon dioxide until they put me in a hole. And I thought, it looks to me as though evil wins on every side constantly, and is presently winning on every side, regardless of how much I pray, how much I seek the Lord's guidance here, and how much I ask God to intervene in behalf of these things that are around me that just seem so big and out of control. And I said, what am I going to do? Where do I go with something like this? And I asked Lord, I said, whatever this is about, if it's just about me, then that's fine. I'll carry on. But if it's got some value, then I'd like for it to be valuable somehow. So, and that's the chance that every sermon goes out with, is a risk that it's only valuable to me and valuable to no one else in the room. That can happen. So where's the solace that we as believers say that is always available to us? Where is it? I mean, I don't know how the events this week, you reacted to them. Maybe you didn't have a strong reaction. That's fine. Maybe somebody just is somewhat detached from all of this that's going on. But you hear things like this asked, and this is the first time in my life as a Christian I've ever thought this was the case, is just this week. And maybe this will pass and we'll all laugh about it later. I don't know. But this is what I thought. I thought, this is a statement I wrote for myself so I wouldn't forget it. Has it ever been this upside down on the earth, where the evil in the world seems to globally prevail like it does today? I don't know the answer to that. But let's see what Habakkuk has to say about all this today. I'll begin reading in Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 1. The following is the message which God revealed to Habakkuk the prophet. And this first bit in this text, Habakkuk is speaking. He's not prophesying in this first text. He's laying out his case. He says, "How long, Lord, must I cry for help, but you don't listen? I call out to you violence, but you don't intervene. Why do you force me to witness the injustice? Why do you put up with all of this wrongdoing? Destruction and violence confront me. Conflict is present, and one must endure the strife. For this reason, and I thought this statement was so contemporary, for this reason the law lacks power, and justice is never carried out. Indeed, the wicked intimidate the innocent. For this reason, justice is perverted. Look at the nations and pay attention. You'll be shocked and amazed. The Lord is now speaking back to Habakkuk. For I'll do something in your lifetime that you won't believe, even though you've been forewarned. I'm about to empower the Babylonians, that ruthless and greedy nation. They sweep across the surface of the earth, seizing dwelling places that don't belong to them. They're frightening and terrifying. They decide for themselves what is right. Their horses are faster than leopards and more alert than wolves in the desert. Their horses gallop. Their horses come from great distances. Like a vulture, they swoop down to devour their prey. All of them intend to do violence, and every face is determined. They take prisoners as easily as someone scoops up sand. They mock the kings. They laugh at rulers. They laugh at every fortified city. They build siege ramps and capture the cities. They sweep by like the wind and then pass on. But the one who considers himself a god will be held guilty. Lord, you have been active from ancient times. Now Habakkuk is speaking again. My sovereign God, you are immortal. Lord, you've made them the instrument of your judgment. Protector, you have appointed them as your instrument of punishment. You are too just to tolerate evil. You are unable to condone wrongdoing. Why do you put up with such treacherous people, and why do you say nothing when the wicked devour those more righteous than they are? You've made people like fish in the sea, like animals in the sea that have no ruler. The Babylonian tyrant pulls them up with a fish hook, and he hauls them in with his throw net. When he catches them in his dragnet, he's happy. Because of his success, he offers sacrifices to his throw net and burns incense to his dragnet. For because of them, he has plenty of food and more than enough to eat. Will he then continue to empty and fill his throw net? Will he destroy nations always and spare none of them? Now, this minor prophet is writing in the 600s BC. He's just a few decades prior to Jeremiah. You know, Jeremiah's experience was one of the Babylonian captivity, being one of the warners of its coming, but it came anyhow, and then he had to live through it. Habakkuk is prior just by a few decades, and he's warning, as Isaiah did, that the Babylonians are coming. So there are a lot of similarities between what we're reading in Habakkuk and what I see personally going on in the world today, I think. I think it's a very contemporary writing. If you look around the world, if we look about, we turn on our televisions, pick up newspapers, look at the streams of news on the internet, evil seems to prevail at every turn. That's what I see. I don't see much good in a broad sense happening. Yes, there are goods for us. We have good Sunday school discussions, I guess, and we enjoy being with each other, and we enjoy meals. We might have a good time with our families. Those are good things, but globally speaking, things do not look good at all. And so what recourse is available to us, who I would consider to be not the elite of the earth? Habakkuk speaks about the Babylonians. The Babylonians are the elite in his day. The Babylonians are the superpower on the earth. They can, as he said, sweep up nations and scoop up prisoners like sand. So here we are as this little church in Maynard, each one of us individual followers of Jesus. What does it matter that we are here? Now, I got to give you a warning. The culmination of this sermon doesn't come to the very end, so you're going to have to sit through some dirt in order to get to the spot at the end, so sorry about that. This minor prophet, and the reason they call these the minor prophets is that their books are rather short. That's the only reason, but he's certainly not talking about minor things. The Jews saw themselves before the Babylonians as nothing. They saw themselves as very vulnerable to the Babylonians. And you see in verses 6 through 8, which I guess would be good to look at once again. he says, I'm about to empower God says, I'm about to empower the Babylonians, this ruthless and greedy nation that sweep across the surface of the earth, seize dwelling places that don't belong to them. And they're frightening and terrifying, and they decide for themselves what is right. Does that not sound familiar? Their horses are faster than leopards, more alert than wolves in the desert. Their horses gallop, their horses come from great distances, and like a vulture they swoop down and devour their prey. They succeed at living their evil with great gusto. They enjoy it. They think they're right because they decide what is right. And it looks to me like God was causing it to happen. Now think about that for a minute. You know, I wrote the 40-page paper as my master's thesis on evil and suffering in the world. And I had to contend with the fact. Say whatever you want. We love to say things like, when we're confronted by somebody who says that God caused X, we love to say, no, God allowed X. That's not true in every case. It's simply not. God allows some things that are evil because we are evil, and he doesn't just wipe us off the earth. He commands evils for people to perform them, and sometimes he actually delivers them himself. Things that we perceive as evil. Be very careful. I want to be careful to say that. It's not evil. God may have morally sufficient reasons to execute the actions that he does, and we need to remember that. But what is the meaning of God's work here? Surely, we would say, and the Jews, you read this in Psalm 73, surely God would not allow his people to suffer for no purpose. Surely not. Think about Jeremiah. Poor Jeremiah, he's a contemporary. He warned of the judgment, then the judgment came. And then, of course, there were prophets with Jeremiah who were saying, well, in 2 years we're out of here. And Jeremiah kept saying, got him thrown in a hole. No, we're going to be here for a long time. You better go ahead and settle down, learn how to live with where you are, raise your families, plant your crops, marry and give in marriage, and get on with it, because we're going to be like this for quite some time. God did this. And when God decides it's over, it's over. Why would God engineer, think of this for a moment, why would God engineer a pagan nation to come to be, and to come to be a superpower, and then bring it to prevail over the nation that is filled with his own people? Surely the Jews weren't that evil, were they? Amos, another one of these minor prophets. I tell you, the minor prophets are so severe. Amos warns. And the warning that he gives is one that says, which was a century old by Habakkuk's time. He says to the Jews, because of your prosperity and the wickedness that has ensued, God is going to judge you. He tells them that. So let's stop and consider for ourselves. Here we are, followers of Jesus, everybody in this room. How do we come to the conclusion that there's immunity from God's movements for any of us? God is watching, right? I think he's watching this nation. I think he's watching us. I think he's watching me. And God's millstone of justice, it might grind slowly, but it grinds really, really finely. And nothing is going to escape it. So what is the response? As God moves, the nations begin to shake, which is happening now, in my view, as I look around. America, with all of her power, is no better than Babylon and no better than Judah. And God is moving. What does that mean for us? The shining city on the hill, as people like to call America, is not immune from God's scrutiny. Wipe some of the glitter off and you can see a lot of things that don't look so good. Our time looks to me, and you sort this out for yourself. It looks suspiciously similar to me to Habakkuk's time in Judah. Suspiciously similar. Our prosperity has made us, I think, forgetful of where the prosperity came from to start with. We've forgotten the source. As Abraham Lincoln said in one of his addresses, we have forgotten God, who has made this nation what it is, one of the most prosperous nations ever to see life on the face of the earth. And have we in our time become blind to the warnings? So the question then becomes, are there any warnings that we could presently point to that we've received? I think we're reading one today. Everybody in this room has probably 8 or 10 Bibles at home. The warnings are there. And I just have to say this, maybe this is the meaning of all this, I don't know, but it tells me just how God looks at every human being as a great treasure. But when it comes to God's history, we aren't that significant. I remember in Pennsylvania, I'm sitting in an elders meeting, and as we were talking about the things that the church was doing, we were deciding things about church direction and things like that, it struck me, and it struck somebody else the same. We're talking about this church. We're just one little congregation in one county, in one state, in one nation, on the entirety of the earth. And we're talking about this little church as though this is the only thing in the world that matters. If I come and go, which I will, God's work on the earth will continue. Long after, if Jesus delays in returning, the mountains will become leveled and God's work will continue, with or without us here. So what is our purpose here and now? I look around at the machinery of society and I say to myself, what in the world can Rip Snow do here? I really do. That this week just brought it home to me that does it matter that we stand against the evil that is in the world? Does it make any difference at all? If evil is to prevail, as it seems to be doing, what is the purpose for our lives here on this earth, here in this church? Maybe Habakkuk could help us here. I'm going to continue reading in chapter 2. Habakkuk says this, well then, I'll stand at my watchpost. I'll remain stationed on the city wall. I will keep watching, so I can see when God says to me and can know how I should answer when he counters my argument. Then the Lord responded to Habakkuk, write down this message, record it legibly on tablets, so the one who announces it may read it easily. For the message is a witness to what has been decreed. It gives reliable testimony about how matters will turn out, even if the message is not fulfilled right away. Wait patiently for it, for it will certainly come to pass. It will not arrive late. It'll be on time. Look, the one whose desires are not upright will faint from exhaustion, but the person of integrity will live because of their faithfulness. So it seems to me that in the midst of all of this, God through Habakkuk gives us a clue. Maybe he wants us to be those watchers that just stand on the wall and wait patiently for God's answer. So I ask us all in this room, and this isn't to make anybody feel bad or anything else. It's just a question. Think about it as you will. Are we praying faithfully for God's movements in this world? And as we pray, let me ask a further question of us, knowing that we're humans and we're all fallen. Is mercy our desire? Or are we rubbing our hands together in glee, seeing that God is going to let the evil get what's coming to them? You know, I think about people who, I have a good friend who he would disagree with everybody in this room, I can tell you right now, and it wouldn't be a pleasant conversation. Don't have this guy over for dinner if you're looking for pleasant dinners. But I love the guy. And yet, he feels as a Christian very convicted that what he thinks about the way the world is going is, as we would disagree with him, good in lots of ways that we would say are bad. You and I only have a small snippet of viewpoint about what's going on in the world, a small snippet. And unless it directly defies what God says is good, then maybe we don't know. You have to remember, when this was written, the only thing there was a government that was ruled over by a king or a queen, royalty, and passed down through the family. You, the people, had no choice about who would be king or queen. What do our puny lives matter in the face of God's work? They can matter a lot. We can either choose to enter into what God is doing in front of us, or we can step aside. We can do that. And either way, God, as Habakkuk calls him in this text, if you look at the Hebrew, the leader of the armies, is going to continue to bring about his purposes regardless of what we choose to do. I read this text, and when I got done, I just thought, what a comfort here for me. Maybe for no one else. But the fact that God is going to succeed in his universe. And even though I'm going to fail, and even though these things seem to make me feel bad, maybe they make you feel bad as well, God's going to win in his universe. He's going to win. And God's work will go on, and we have the privilege of participating in it in our small way. And we get to choose whether we will participate or not. That, being a watcher on the wall, seems like a good thing to live for, to me. And it made a difference in how I looked at the world. I did not look at the world well when I got up to start this that evening. So, I'll leave that with you today. If anybody has anything they'd like to speak with me about after we finish today, I'll be glad to speak with you. I hope that you're encouraged as well, that your lives, like my life, matters as we resist the evil that's in the world.